It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. These words, written in Machiavelli's work, The Prince, took on living form in a young man, Jonathan Crane. His parents, Gerald and Clara Crane, had eloped from North Carolina and moved to outer Gotham. Clara came from a southern gentry family, but their eloping caused her to be cut off from them. They lived on some farmland just outside the city proper. Gerald, Clara, and their children farmed for a living. This was because of Gerald's background of farming with his family in North Carolina. Jonathan was a very attentive and analytical child. Education was important in his family, but Jonathan in particular took a liking to it. The children went to a small local school near the Crane farmstead. Jonathan could often be found sitting under a tree, reading anything he could get his hands on. He had two older siblings, Gerard and Helen, who never understood his obsession, and would often antagonize him for reading so much. Jonathan was a sensitive soul. One time in particular, after a quarrel with his siblings, Jonathan fled tearfully into the cornfield adjacent to the house. Not paying nearly enough attention, the boy found himself lost in the tall stalks of corn. He wandered for a bit, and then, by happenstance, came across a scarecrow. His father had recently put it up, unbeknownst to the boy, and it terrified him. It was made patchily of sackcloth and hay, giving it a grotesque countenance. Hours after dusk, Gerald eventually found Jonathan cowering on the edge of the field, nearly hysterical with fear. He did not speak of what had happened out in the field, and none of his family pressed the matter. The young boy was never the same after that, and was filled with hatred for his siblings. As his education continued, Jonathan became fascinated with science. He took a special interest in the budding fields of agrochemistry, botany, and especially psychology. In 1885, he moved to Gotham City proper in order to attend Gotham University. Here he met Pamela Isley, one of the first women in the science field in Gotham. He learned alongside her about hallucinogenic plant life, which fascinated him. Crane's main focus was psychology, and he eventually graduated in 1889, top of his class. He soon found a job at Arkham Asylum for the criminally insane. He worked under Amadeus Arkham, the founder of the asylum and warden at the time. Dr. Crane's job was as a psychiatrist to the individuals incarcerated there. It was a good fit for him, although he felt constricted by the limited responsibilities he had been given. Crane wanted to perform his own psychological and agrochemical experiments. He was still haunted by his childhood fear of the Scarecrow in the cornfield, and he wanted to cure himself of that fear. Dr. Crane began to secretly conduct unethical experiments on the inmates. He utilized his knowledge of hallucinogens to try and isolate fear responses in his victims. Many who were entrusted to his care suffered permanent mental and emotional damage due to his experiments. Some of them became trapped within a nightmare of their own fears. As he continued to conduct these cruelties, Crane began to realize something. He enjoyed making others feel powerless, and he enjoyed being the cause of others' fear. He considered it a treatment for himself against his childhood trauma with the Scarecrow in the field. One of Crane's colleagues, Dr. Hugo Strange, took a liking to him. Strange shared with him the notes he'd taken working with Wilhelm Wundt in Leipzig, Germany. This bolstered the experiments that Dr. Crane was already doing. Crane used this new knowledge to create a drug that would induce fear in his victims. Strange also learned of Jonathan's experiments, but having conducted immoral experiments himself, did not report him. Instead, the two conspired to get Strange the position of warden and chief psychiatrist. They would accomplish this by driving Amadeus Arkham insane. Crane developed a new fear-inducing hallucinogenic drug that could be released into the air. He had done research on airborne chemical agents used by both Hannibal and some Native American tribes. This helped him to devise his own device for dispersing it. Crane also acquired designs made by Louis Hazlitt in 1849 for a breathing apparatus. He crafted his own to use in the preliminary tests of his airborne psychedelic. This way, he could be in the room with his victims as they experienced their worst fears. Amadeus was already grief-stricken by the recent murder of his wife and daughter. Once his family's murderer had been captured, Mad Dog Hawkins, Hugo Strange pushed to have Hawkins move to Arkham. Jonathan Crane then planned a series of meetings with Amadeus. The warden was unwittingly exposed to Crane's hallucinogen and his mind began to give way. Amadeus inevitably did go insane, taking Mad Dog to a secluded part of the asylum and killing him. Amadeus Arkham was locked away in his own institution, deemed insane. Together, Strange and Crane had accomplished their goals, and Dr. Strange became the new warden of Arkham Asylum. Hugo Strange allowed Dr. Crane to continue with his experiments, now completely unhindered by secrecy. As Crane worked, his obsession with fear grew and grew. He learned everything he could about fear. He was fascinated with the Greek gods of fear and terror, Phobos and Deimos. He modified his breathing apparatus into a fearsome mask after the description of Phobos in the Iliad. Staring backwards with eyes that glowed with fire, his mouth was full of teeth in a white row, fearful and daunting. This obsession with fear came to a head one day while Crane was conducting one of his experiments. He wore his mask and observed one of his test subjects reacting to his fear toxin, as he called it. The unfortunate inmate writhed and screamed, then looked at Crane, seeing the ghastly visage of the mask. The inmate screamed, "Scarecrow," in terror, and his heart gave out then and there. This struck Jonathan a massive mental and emotional blow, all of his childhood fear flooding back. He was reminded of the terror inflicted on him in the cornfield, the anger he felt at his siblings, and the helplessness of it all. It shook him deeply, and it took him days to recover. When he eventually returned to work, he was quiet, subdued, and filled with a new resolve. If he could not cure his fear, he decided then and there that he would be the Scarecrow, the new god of fear, and the terror of Gotham City. He would inflict the fear he felt on others, fiercely and mercilessly, just like the turmoil within himself. The nightmares Gotham had already seen were nothing compared to what Jonathan Crane would bring.